So for me, AI is the fastest way and the cheapest to play catch up with the rest of the world. So the how, the why, and the way you use AI and how to critically assess outputs from AI. I think that is a major education responsibility. So the way when we change the way we teach, change the way we assess. Or I would say assessment should be much more flexible and focus on thinking skills. And that is why the teacher is key in the whole education process, in the teaching and learning process. There is no learning without the human in the loop. Because, as I said earlier, learners don't necessarily need their own devices, they need access to.
Hi, Vanessa. Welcome to the podcast for the AI in education. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me. I've read through some of the information you sent me, and I think we're going to have a very, very nice chat tonight. But maybe just before we start, I know that you don't really want to talk too much about what you do on a daily basis, but maybe just give me a little bit of or the viewers a little bit of a background into your interests. Why did you agree on an AI podcast? You are very involved in e-learning, but why AI? Where do you see the overlap in this conversation?
Okay, for me, um, firstly, thanks for the opportunity. For me, Harry, for I see AI as an opportunity for communities or schools, education systems to leapfrog and play catch up as soon as, because we are already behind other countries, behind other continents. So for me, AI is the fastest way and the cheapest to play catch up with the rest of the world. And I'm specifically talking about um, getting getting AI to schools in low resource areas, in poor communities, in very rural farm communities or whatever. Because for me, if we talk about equality in education, we won't get to a device per learner. I don't think before I retire we'll get there. But for me, it's about access. It's not about I need my own tablet, I need my own device. Learners should just have access to. And I always refer to in 1999, I was part of a Swedish South African exchange program. And Sweden is a first world country. And they had 4 or 5 desktops at the back of each class. So if and when they did any learners had to do research, they went to the desktop, did their research, came back to their group, did had their discussions, and that for me is key. They did not all have their own device. So I'm a realist, an idealistic realist. That even though we people would want every learner to have a device, it's not realistic.
Okay,
Okay.
but when you say device, are you referring to something like a laptop, a cell phone, or tablet, or and do you include, for instance, a teacher laptop and a projector screen, or a projector and a screen? How do the your intuition on that? Would it be easier to get a projector and a laptop per teacher than to get a device per learner?
Yes, for me, the non-negotiable is that the teacher should have a laptop. If it can be a whiteboard, better, but a laptop, a projector, um, connectivity. That for me would be the basic if you want to go the e-learning route or you want to use or integrate AI in education.
Well,
That's the minimum.
I'm thinking one of the things that you mentioned to me beforehand is that AI should have ethics. That was a very peculiar word to use, talking about AI. So I'd like to explore that a little bit because it has come up in previous podcasts, that I've had, previous conversations. The fact that ethics is important, but how do you define ethics in the context of a large language model? That is where my the original idea for this podcast really came in is I want to talk about the AI as a tool for the student. And there, because you are working with children, ethics obviously is paramount. But I've
Mm.
just never used the word ethics a lot, and I haven't heard the word ethics a lot in conversations about AI. So I would like to talk to you about that first. What do you mean with ethics? And then come back to my question about the projectors.
Okay. For me, the ethical use of AI. Um, you see, with social media, we the young ones, um, they took to it like a fish to water. Um, Teachers, parents, just saw the impact of social media after the fact. I'm afraid that we are in the same position with AI. Schools not guiding learners, parents not guiding the children in terms of how to use it so that, for me, I always in my training say, if you don't use it, you lose it. So if they don't use their brain and AI dumps everything on them and they just copy and paste, then their cognitive abilities will go down. So the how, the why, and the way you use AI and how to critically assess outputs from AI, I think that is a major education responsibility. And if and when learners use it, because for me, we all know that learners use AI for assignments. But if we talk about AI integration in any classroom, teachers would say they need training for those to integrate it successfully in their classrooms. But they don't have a problem to use AI detectors in their classroom untrained, even though research has shown that it has a lot of false positives. Yeah, in other countries, I know of students that is they're making mistakes deliberately so that it is not flagged as AI generated. I had the same issue with my child. He was in grade 12 last year, and he had to redo two assignments because his teacher used Turnitin as her AI detector. Um, I've been doing AI training for teachers, but as pilot programs in the province, and I know she wasn't part of any of the training. And I had to, as a mother, I had to keep quiet because my son just said, "Don't make a fuss because that can influence my marks towards the end of the year." And I had to keep quiet. But that for me is one of the issues. It is AI detectors are used indiscriminately because it's used as a catch out, whereas open AI, they've all withdrawn the AI detectors because it is not perfect. It's not a perfect system. The the learners as well as the teachers should be grounded in the ethical use of.
Okay, so when you say ethics, then you basically mean the ethical use. I want to elaborate a little bit on that because I've noticed that you have a lot of focus on teachers using the AI, and yes, AI can do a lot for the teacher. But what I'm trying to get to in this podcast series is more how AI can be used as a learning tool, which obviously then focuses more on the student side of it. And you've touched on
Yes.
that by saying they just copy and paste, which is wrong. However,
Mm.
if you look at AI as a tool that just supplies the answers, you ask it to write an essay and it does it. You ask it to do your math homework and it does it. Then we can say, this is just an opinion, then we can say that the AI is unethical because it's not supporting the learning process of the
Learning.
student. So I think it's
Mm.
important just to make a distinction between using AI to become more efficient, as a teacher
Yes.
should do, and using AI as a learning tool, which is what the students should do. And
Should do.
on the student side, if the AI doesn't support that, it's unethical in inverted commas.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
unfortunately, and you've also touched on this, your large language models, your Chat GPT, Grok, Claude, Gemini, Copilot, all of them, unfortunately, in that sense, we have to label them as unethical because their training is such that they
Yep.
want to provide the answer. I mean, that's what they exist for, is they must provide the answer and they must provide
Answer.
it as elaborately as they possibly can, and they feel
Mm.
good if they provide you with 3 pages worth of answers on a single
Yeah.
question. It's like they feel very good about themselves because that's what their training expects. That's how they
Mm.
grow. That's how they self-evolve. But for the student who says, I need to know something about, let's say, for instance, Nelson Mandela. You know, if AI gets that little question, it's going to produce that much information. And the student can copy and paste. And what has been learned about Madiba if
Nothing.
you just copy and paste it?
Nothing.
So what I do, and I would like to hear your opinion on this as
Mm.
a possible ethical, like I said, it's a new word or not frequently used word, but I like the use of it right here. An
Mm.
ethical direction change for AI if you use the agentic approach. Because with the
Mm.
agent, you basically go and stand between the agent is here, your large language model is here, and your student is here, and the agent sits in between. And what makes the agent
Yes.
good for such a purpose is the fact that it can be trained. It can
Yes.
have guardrails in place. So you can basically say to it, if you get a question such as that, can you tell me something about Nelson Mandela? The agent must respond with, sure, I can. What would you like to know?
Yes.
Stimulate thinking, stimulate a return question, stimulate critical thinking in the process, problem solving, if it's sciences or maths. If
Yes.
it's geography and you say, I don't really understand how the clouds are forming, not just provide all the answers, but actually take one step at a time, a pedagogical approach to this. So I would like to hear what you think of that as a solution for the AI as a learning tool problem.
What you're saying is what is lacking in education currently, because we don't have guardrails against um, open source or paid subscriptions or free versions of any AI tool. Anybody can use anything, any tool. And the thing is, if you want to catch out learners or you want to prevent learners outside of school, we won't be able to do that. That's something totally out of our control. But if we as a system, an education system, bring in AI into the classroom, there needs to be, as you said, an agent that is prompted to basically say, this is how you can provide. Because for me, the Socratic method is key in terms of engaging the learners by questioning all the time, so that the learner, the critical thinking or any basic thinking skill is practiced continuously. I agree with what you say, but outside of school, I don't think we will have any control.
No, I'm sure we won't have any control, but what I'm hoping for is a willing buy-in, from the students, from the learners, purely because such an agent can make it easier. It may sound initially like it's going the long way around because it's a lot of questions and answers and questions and answers. But I personally have had experience. I mean, I'm a mathematician, I'm a math tutor. This is what I do for a living. And I've asked maths questions, like normal, not difficult, complex questions, just normal factorization or fractions or things like that, to the large language models, just to test. And the amount of information that it provides as a response is just so overwhelming. You know what? You've lost me already. I haven't even started, and already I feel like you're drowning me in information. So I'm wondering if the students get used to the idea of a Socratic tutor, if that's not going to be a natural consequence or natural tendency for them to rather drift that way than the free large language models, purely because it assists them in learning. Now, we can take this from the perspective of the classroom, as you rightly pointed out, to say we can use in the classroom on the projector, which is why I asked about that earlier. The teacher can then say, let's use the AI in the classroom. But that creates a problem, as we all know, for teachers in terms of time. They're already struggling to get through their curriculums as it is. They obviously know their subject matter. So they know their lesson plans, they know what they want to teach. If we can assist them in teaching, sure, why not? But then YouTube might be a better route, especially for your sciences, your social sciences. They might be able to get an idea across better by showing a couple of videos of Madiba rather than getting AI to answer in text form. So would it be a feasible project, to actually get AI, even if it's an agent, to get an agent into the classroom where the teacher shows them how it works? Or would it be a better route to get the children involved after school, which is where the AI really shines, if you think about it? When they're outside of the classroom and they have to do their homework and they get stuck, they need a support system. And in my opinion, and this is why I developed the AI tutor that I have, is to actually dig into that pot of, or the need, let's call it the need of students having no support system after school. So if we can catch them in that environment where they need support, would it be better than to try and force it into the classroom? What do you think?
I think we are having different views of how. If I say AI in education, then it is basically used for teaching and learning, not necessarily I'm just going to use AI to do whatever. It's for lesson prep. It is to create videos that is specific to the content that I want to cover. It is for creating assessment and stuff like that. I don't see us in the next few years using AI in class specifically. And I'm now specifically talking about government schools. I'm not talking private schools. It can make the teacher's job easier in terms of lesson preparation, in terms of assessment, in terms of what quality I bring to the classroom in terms of lessons, the content that, because every one of us, and I see myself as someone who is very creative in terms of teaching. But in the classroom specifically, you can get to that point where you get into the routine. This is how I do it. And the nice thing for me with AI is it will give me ideas that I would have never thought of myself. And that for me is it can bring the creativity back to the classroom. Not just we stick to this is Mr. Skuman, this is how he teaches. And everybody knows that because he has a specific recipe that you get stuck in after a few years in education.
When I was at school, I remember clearly that we were told, you can't use a calculator until you're in grade 10, because that's when we started with trigonometry. And the alternative was
Mm,
to go through the trig and log books, which obviously calculators would make easier. But you were not
mm,
allowed to use it before that. Your times tables and your add and subtract and so forth had to be done mentally. And we were
yep.
told that calculators are going to make us lazy and it's going to make our brains stupid if you use a
Mm,
calculator to do times tables. However, somebody said to me in one of the podcasts that if you think of an accountant, and actually I had a guest over the last weekend, I had a guest whose dad was one of these accountants that would take the things, the tables, the books, and he would just go through them like that, and he would count them all mentally, and he would be spot on right down to the nearest cent mentally,
mm,
calculating 40 or 50
mm,
rows of numbers. Um,
mm,
I mean, to do that, that's a real skill. But the argument was made that did the calculator and the Excel spreadsheet really make us dumber than people in the previous generations who could do it mentally, or did it make us more
mm.
efficient and faster? And that,
Efficient and faster.
yeah, it did. So when we look at AI as a teacher tool, as you rightly said, it can give you fresh ideas. It can make your
Mm,
lesson plans faster. It can do so much for you as a teacher to make you more effective and more efficient.
yep.
But it all happens before you step into the classroom. So your lesson preparation is done beforehand. Your assessment planning,
Beforehand.
your videos. You mentioned creating videos specifically for what I want to teach. That can't
Yeah.
happen in the class. That has to happen before. It's all about teacher preparation, making the teachers more efficient. And yes, I can
Mm,
totally agree with you, as you said at the beginning, the teachers will need training in that, because human nature is to kick against something that is new. I don't want to,
yeah.
because I don't understand it. I don't like change.
Yeah.
So leave me the way I've done it the last
Leave
30
me
years.
alone.
I'm happy. Yeah. But at the same time, we also look at the learners who are using AI for a totally different outcome. They need
Mm,
to do their homework. And what they do effectively is they're cheating by getting AI to do their homework. Now we can
yes.
say, is that really making them dumber because they're not thinking anymore? AI is doing everything for them? Or are they becoming
Mm,
more efficient at producing homework? And I think the consensus would be that they are actually becoming lazy and brain
Mm.
lazy because they are not learning
Mm.
anything anymore. I mean, we all have to agree that learning, the process of learning anything, has to be painful. You know, if there's no
Mm.
pain, you're not learning. Then it becomes just a copy and paste exercise. So my
Yeah.
comment was
There should
directed.
be rigor. There should be rigor.
Yes, yeah, for sure,
Mm.
for sure. So how do we get the students when they are at home to know that the easy way out is not the correct way for their own development? And somebody also said in one of the podcasts that we should actually get ownership for their own futures. You know,
Mm.
entrench the ownership so that they know if they cheat with the large language model, they are basically messing up their own futures because they are not learning. And ultimately, to survive in a world which is going to be dominated by AI, you need to
Mm.
have an edge. And your edge is not going to be prompting. You know, prompt engineering is
Yes.
not going to get you anywhere. You need to be ahead of the AI curve to try and
Yes.
get
Yes.
that ownership of their own futures. And the solution that I'm proposing, and I would just like to hear your thoughts on that, is an agent.
The one thing that is currently happening is that we changing the way we teach because teachers are also using AI. So we're changing the way we teach, and at a departmental level, my number one question is like if we have an e-learning session, I would always ask now, where's exams and assessment? Because if you change the way you teach, the way you assess should necessarily also change. Um, we cannot just test content knowledge. Our assignments that learners get is generic. Teachers have been using it for years. They just edit a bit out every year for to make it more relevant, but the structure basically stays the same because it is something that works. So if the way you structure your assessment changes, then it can make the learner much more part of the learning process doing that assignment. If there there is certain things that they should be doing in, like, let's make an example. They It's a history assignment. They need to go and do interviews with older people in their family line and whatever, and they need to interview and then answer a question according to that context of the question. It's not a generic question anymore. It is an application that they're doing of knowledge that they've gained.
And then, if we look at, for instance, the past requirements for an assessment, how would AI address? Let's say, for instance, I'm a very future forward thinking teacher. I
Mm.
teach history. I want to get a nice assessment that I can give my students, knowing that they are going to use AI themselves, but I want to make it so that they learn something in the process. How
Mm.
will I include that in a formative assessment? You know, the fact that I need to still test. I mean, that's how the curriculum, it requires of the students to be assessed on certain knowledge points. And if they don't
Yes.
pass that benchmark, they can't pass the test. So
Mm.
I don't know if the CAPS curriculum really allows for skills testing in terms of I've mastered a certain skill, but I may not have mastered the knowledge because the knowledge is in the AI. I can just recall that from with a prompt. I can get the knowledge, but I am skilled in coming up with, for instance, a survey to go and do the interviews. But is that an assessment benchmark that can be achieved, or are we not there yet with the curriculum where the
I,
skill can be assessed?
I don't think our education system is ready for. They're not. They're still not geared towards. The system needs to change for our education goals and aims that we have to be realized. Because, in my opinion, and that's not my personal opinion, we are still producing learners at the end of grade 12 when they exit here. We are still producing learners that is not ready for the world of work. They're not ready for higher education. Um, I know of learners still that go from grade 1 to grade 12 and they've never touched a laptop or a tablet or a desktop in their 12-year journey in education. The learners who will get that opportunity is the learners who's doing computer applications technology. And that for me is worrying, because we, as you said, we want learners who are future focused, who's ready for the challenges of the world of work, of higher education, will not drown and be part of the statistics of first year students that drop out because they just cannot cope.
But if we now have to define the world of work,
Mm.
in an AI dominated environment, as it has been the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, we have to be realistic about the speed at which AI is changing the
It's
world around
changing.
us. They For the last couple of months, I've seen a lot of articles and a lot of videos on YouTube where they say AI is coming for your job. You
Yes.
basically you can't escape. AI is coming for your job, and part of this
Mm.
podcast has been to address the role of teachers, specifically human teachers, not AI teachers. And I
Mm.
think, over a lot of conversations, the point has been established that teachers are pretty much safe in an AI world
Yes.
because of the fact that they are still human. They've still
Yes.
got the empathy, they've got the nurturing ability. They can look at a
Yeah.
student and see something's not right with you today, whether it's
Mm.
emotional, whether it's psychological, whatever. You can't outsource that
Yeah.
to an AI agent. You just can't.
Yep.
So the role of a human has become, over the last couple of weeks, actually, I've seen a lot more focus on that in articles and videos and in
Mm.
conversations, in this on this podcast, that the role of the humanity, yours and mine, and the teachers and the kids and the parents and everybody else, you need to
Yeah.
find something that AI cannot replace.
Cannot do.
And and
Cannot
and,
do.
and a very good example I heard on a podcast that I watched was, for instance, an AI can never go to a party for you. And I thought, yeah,
Mm.
you know what, that's actually very true. It cannot go and enjoy a hamburger for you,
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
milkshake or something. So we need to find that differentiating factor that AI cannot replace, but
Mm.
it still has an effect, especially in America, I believe it has a huge effect on job security. Lots of people are being let go
Let it
under the
go.
the banner of AI is going to replace you, but it turns out that
Mm.
that is not really the case. What the big companies are doing is they're letting people go to cut down on the expenses, the salary expenses.
Yeah.
They're
The
blaming
salaries.
it on AI, but it's actually not AI that is coming for their jobs. It's just simply
Yes.
capitalism at work. So
Yes.
That brings me to the question: when a child, for instance, is in grade 8 now, this year, in 5 years' time, if the world has changed so much in 3 years since ChatGPT was launched in
Mm,
2022,
mm,
what's going to happen in the next 5 years? So when that student in grade 8 leaves school in 5 years' time, and we'd say you have to be ready for the workforce, what's that workforce going to be in 5 years' time? So I'm coming back to the point of getting the students to take ownership of their futures by realizing that nobody can tell them what the world is going to look like in 5 years. It's not predictable
no.
as it has been the last 100 years, where you can safely
Mm,
say you go through school, you go to university, you get a degree, you can pretty much um, wiggle your way around for a job that satisfies you and that gives you a decent income. But right now, as it stands here in 2026, I would certainly not stick my neck out and say what the world is going to look like in 5 years' time. Yet
yeah.
those kids must be prepared. How do we prepare them for a world that nobody knows, apart from going back to their humanity, making sure that they
Yes.
understand their unique humanity that can never be replaced, which
Yeah.
includes things like sociability, making friends. And
Yeah.
what's very interesting, you mentioned Facebook earlier, social media. Another podcast that I heard, a guy actually said Facebook, when it came on, into the world, it promised us a new way of connecting. That was the
Yes.
original promise of social media. We are going to connect better, but it turns out it didn't do that. It actually created more loneliness than anything else.
Yes. Yes.
But this person made the comment. He said that AI can actually be, he's not predicting it or saying it as a fact, but he said AI might
Mm,
actually be intelligent enough to bring us back together because it's forcing us to now become more human. So there might
yes.
be something in this AI that we're missing if we don't include the human nature of the thing that AI cannot replace. So I'm asking this like a question, or I'm making it as a statement, but it's actually designed as a question. Should we not
Mm,
really get more focus on the child, the humanity of the child, and then included in humanity is the desire to want to
yes.
learn rather than just copy and paste? Shouldn't that be the
Yes.
focus?
You 100% correct. If I was now a decision maker in a future focused education system, up until grade 7, I would say the teacher as the thinker in class, the teacher as a distributor of knowledge in class, because the one thing that we want as grade 12 learners exit is critical thinking, how to collaborate, how to all those 21st century skills. That is what we want. That is one of the focus, according to Parliament. That is the citizenry that we want to have in South Africa. But our assessment is not collaborative. Our assessment is not. Um, we want learners to critically think. But if I now have a life sciences question, I have to answer that according to a certain memo. I have to answer or any content subject. I have to do it a certain way for me to be considered competent. Um, so our assessment should change, and definitely the approach, but the human factor for me can be solidified within the system from grade R to grade 7 in terms of learners, or I would say assessment should be much more flexible and focus on thinking skills, um, and that collaboration, all those 21st century skills that we want learners to have, but we don't give them the opportunity to develop. I can make an example. I always told teachers that I would never have an argument with my son because I would always give him options in terms of what he wants. Let's say dad is having a braai in the lapa, and um, he's now just out of the bath. He's 4 or 5 years old, and it's winter. He wants to go out, and I would say, okay, you can, but you have to warm, put on something warm and whatever. And he would insist he wants to go just as he is, and I would say you have the option. You can go out, dress warmly, or not. You know, so that's the two options that he had. If um, in class and at home, I think these days most of the number one word that kids hear the most is no, don't, no, and don't. So when they leave after matric and they go to higher education institutions, we assume that they can manage themselves, they can decide for themselves, they can be responsible. But we've never given them the opportunity to do that, to practice that.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to put something on the table which is most probably biased because of my love for mathematics, and I want you to challenge me if you disagree with me.
Mm.
If you look at a subject like, for instance, history or biology, um, I don't think languages really, because languages is a fluency thing. You know,
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to become fluent in a language. But let's
Mm.
say there are certain rules in languages that you also need to know. You know, I is
Mm.
wrong, I am is correct. So
Yes.
things like that. But in mathematics, you cannot learn much. You know, it took
Mm.
very, very skilled, very highly intellectual people to develop the mathematics that we teach and use
Yeah.
today. So to ask a grade 10 learner to go and figure out trigonometry on their own, or to go and learn trigonometry even, is a fruitless exercise, because you
Yes.
have to understand the trigonometry before you can do anything with it. And in order to understand geometry, you have to ask questions. If you don't get it the first time, you stop, you say, why?
Yes.
Or why not? Why did it happen this way? What happens if that changes? So, a
Mm.
fluency in questions is actually the key to success in mathematics, in my
Yes.
opinion. Okay, in my opinion,
Mm.
let me be
Yeah.
clear about that.
Mm.
But isn't that exactly what we want for the kids? When you say they want to be good citizens after school, critical thinkers. So, my opinion is that mathematics is a tool that doesn't necessarily teaches you algebra. It teaches you that
Yes.
critical thinking
Thinking.
skill,
Mm.
which is something that you can assess from the point of view, do you understand variations? So I give you a
Mm.
certain algebra question. If you understand algebra, you can do that question in a formal assessment.
Yes.
And then when you go to your learning subjects, like I said, history or geography,
Mm.
languages, biology, so forth, there,
Content.
yeah, there you have to just learn the content, you know. And
Mm.
if you want to become a doctor, you're obviously going to focus more on biology or physiology. That's going to be something that's interesting to you. You are going to use either Google or YouTube or then AI to learn more
Yes.
about whatever. And you may not
Yeah.
be too concerned about the languages. You may not be too concerned about accounting, for instance. It's a
Yeah.
subject you have to take, and you know you'll do whatever you do in it. But there's going to be a differentiating between students depending on their skills level, whether they are interested more in the histories or in the geographies or in the physiologies or the physical sciences or so forth, where assessment has to be the way it is. This is my question or my statement question to you. The assessment has to be content based, because otherwise, how do you really assess whether they know what they are supposed to know? But in mathematics, you can assess differently, because there you can assess whether there's a skills level just by altering the question slightly, and you do not achieve that skills level if you don't if you haven't learned how to ask questions. And this is where the AI now really comes into its own, because the AI can duplicate a good teacher a million times. So an AI agent can be available for every single student every single afternoon who wants to ask questions. So isn't that where the focus needs to be in a world of AI? And if you think about prompting, that's just a good question. You know,
Yeah.
shouldn't we be teaching the kids that your key for success in a world that nobody can predict is most probably going to lie in your skill to ask questions? And then we give them AI to test, or to test drive. Say, you know what? You don't believe me, go and ask. See how much you learn about whatever by going and asking the AI about whatever. Because the AI is PhD level clever on everything.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
literally is that clever. So you cannot really ask it a question that it doesn't know the answer for or to. And then you teach them also that you must remember that even if the AI doesn't have the answer, it will never
Right.
admit that. It will
Yes.
lie to you. It will come up with an answer just to sound clever because it wants to please you. Now,
Yes.
who's going to be in trouble if you are quoting the wrong thing that doesn't exist? Like, for instance, we all know about the cases of lawyers who cited
Yep.
case studies or case law of
That
things that
didn't
never
exist.
existed. Yeah,
Yeah.
so those lawyers are in trouble.
Um,
Do you want to be that one person that just flatly believes everything AI tells you, or do you want to be the critical thinker that spots something and says, "No, wait"?
mm,
And
mm,
where do you learn that skill if you just copy paste your homework?
exactly. Um, the one thing I do is usually I would use, say, five, six different AI tools, exactly the same prompt, and look at what's the common thread, the common content across all five.
Mm.
Um, and that for me would be the most likely truth.
Yeah, but you
The
see,
most
Vanessa, what you're saying is true for you and me as adults.
likely.
We are mature enough to understand what we are talking about. Is it realistic to expect a school student in grade 8 or grade 9 to go through all of
Mm.
that trouble to double check, or is it just going to be the easy way out for them?
They are
That's
going to
where I
use the
see the
easy way
problem.
out.
Yeah, I see a problem there, and that's why I come back to the idea of ownership. Telling
Mm.
them that unless you learn the skill of ownership for your future, we can teach you, we can punish you, we can penalize you, we can look the other way. It doesn't really matter how your teacher reacts to you using
Mm.
AI. Ultimately, it's your future. And if you
Yes.
mess up your future by not developing critical thinking, ultimately you are going to be lost in a world of AI. And I'm not saying this is the solution. I'm prompting you basically
Mm.
in asking whether it is a possible direction that we should go for the learners. I mean, we know what we want for teachers. I'm not discounting
Yeah.
teachers. I'm not saying teachers should or shouldn't use AI. I think we have
Mm.
established
Mm.
that it
Yeah.
will make them more efficient. But
Yes.
for a student, going faster is not necessarily more efficient, because faster is normally the short way, through just copy paste.
Yeah. Mm.
I'm just wondering whether teaching them ownership of their futures, which means we need to shift the attention to the world has changed since 2022. You know,
Yes.
just look around. In 2021 and even in COVID in 2020, nobody could have predicted. I mean, the world was upside down. You know, it was
Yes.
chaotic in 2020. We thought it cannot get any worse. But 2 years later, November 2022, ChatGPT was launched, and look what happened in 2 or 3
Look what
years.
happened. Mm.
And the
Yeah.
kids need to understand that, you know, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, it's going to be different. Eh?
It's going to be different. My question is, what I'm sitting with and struggling with is, um, if it is going to be different, how different will it be? And now I'm making the comparison between first world countries and third world countries, because we can make the assumption that South Africa is going to be a first world country because of AI, and it is not the reality of the future that we're moving towards. Not in the, I would say, not in the next 5 years. Not in the next 5 years. Um, we can use technology to make our learners globally competitive, in terms of, as I said, the 21st century skills and whatever. But as you said, learners will need to own their own knowledge, their own learning. There's two things I am going to say. Firstly, there is no, there's an assumption that if you teach, I learn. That's a huge assumption in education. It's not necessarily true. Um, the other thing is, the second thing is that if if we use technology, we are automatically going to prepare our learners for, um, for the world of work or whatever route they're going to take. The third thing is, there is no learning. That's the one thing learners should be made aware of. There is no learning without relationships. And that is why the teacher is key in the whole education process, in the teaching and learning process. There is no learning without the human in the loop. Studies have shown that learners perform better when they have a better relationship with their teacher. So the teacher is the sage on the stage in the classroom.
You know,
Is the center of.
I want to add to that from a podcast, or actually, I think it was a TEDx talk video that I watched one day, where the guy was talking, or the theme or the title, you know, of this talk was AI will revolutionize education. And he said, and the talk basically summarized is that he started with Thomas Edison when he invented the phonograph. And he showed news clips where Thomas Edison himself said, this is going to revolutionize education because now we can record the teacher and we can play it back. And it didn't happen. Then the radio came out in the 30s and the 40s, and people said, this is going to revolutionize education because now we can broadcast the teacher. It didn't.
Yeah.
Then in the 80s, we had those cassette tapes. You know, I don't know if you remember, you know, we got them in a little suitcase with books, and you had to listen. And, okay, that is going to revolutionize education. It never did. Then we had the computer. computer programs. This is going to
Yes.
revolutionize. Then we had the internet. This is going to revolutionize the education system. And it never did. And the conclusion this guy drew was that it never did because of one failure with all technology, the human in the classroom. The fact that there are peer collaboration, there is conversation, there's debate, there's thinking, and just a leadership figure with empathy. And that is why technology has failed in more than 100 years to revolutionize education. Yes, it made it efficient, maybe, it made it better to do this and that, but learning still needs, and this is adding to what you've just said, learning still needs the teacher. However,
Yes.
there is also a saying that I read the other day that says AI is not going to replace teachers, but teachers who use AI will replace teachers who don't.
Don't.
So we have to also get the teachers aware of the fact that they need to embrace change. They need to stick with it. Don't just dismiss it because something has worked for 30 years is going to work for the next 5 years. It's not necessarily so, because your learners expect more. But also on a point that you've made about South Africa being maybe or maybe not a first world country, and I don't know how true this is. This is just a subjective observation. When cell phones came out, in the mid 90s in South Africa, there was an almost universal feeling that, okay, this is bottom of the range technology. We are, after all, at the bottom end of Africa. We are not the best in the world. But what I have discovered from subjective means is that we actually started in the mid 90s with some of the world's best cell phone technologies. And I stand to be corrected, but I think we actually have world-class technology in South Africa. So there's no reason to believe that we will not produce world-class entrepreneurs, world-class AI developers, just because of the social constraints that we also have in South Africa. So I'm not correcting you on that because, like I said, it is a subjective observation.
Yes.
But I do believe this country. I spoke to somebody recently in a podcast. I can't remember if it was the one earlier today or over the weekend, where she said, we have to remember that one thing that South Africa has is resiliency. We are such a resilient community, and we will bounce back no matter what gets thrown at us. So if we can invest properly in our kids,
if we can prioritize.
That's a very good point you're making there. If we can prioritize. But who knows what's going to pop out from South Africa? I mean, Elon Musk popped out from South Africa.
Yes.
It's not unreal to think that there might be more Albert Einsteins and Nelson Mandelas and Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, those big entrepreneurs. Who knows who's going to pop out? Desmond Tutus, people who are peacemakers. There must be so much untapped potential in this country, and we just need to provide an area where that can flourish amongst the kids. And I think the time is right.
Good soil. The good soil is the education.
Yes. So
the good soil.
What do we do about that now? In conclusion, we have to start closing down this conversation. Unfortunately, I would love to speak to you another couple of hours, but then the videos are going to get way too long. But I would certainly love to have a follow-up meeting with you, somewhere in the future, touch base again and see what has changed. But just in closing, what would you propose we do in order to prioritize the education and prepare the soil for these kids to actually get some proper roots that they can grow in the next 3, 4, 5 years? Because that's literally the time frame that we allow them. There's no more generation. You have to really get on it in 3 or 4 years. Otherwise, you are probably not going to have a proper job when you finish school. The digital divide is just going exponentially.
It's growing. It's growing. The focus in education should be um, infrastructure, access, not for teaching and learning in class, as we've discussed earlier, infrastructure that will enable access. Because, as I said earlier, learners don't necessarily need their own devices, they need access to. The other thing also, you now spoke about cell phones and stuff like that, but we have AI policies, not phone policies, cell phone policies at school that says that learners are not allowed to use that. So we keeping um, learners back in terms of what they can do, because most learners have smartphones these days, and those who don't share with those who have. Um, and if I'm now referencing African African impact, I see uh, cell phones have 84% penetration rate in Africa. And for a continent, we are at the top of, if you compare us to other continents or other countries. So we all have access to cell phones. You know, I was talking to James Bernard the other day, also on a um, virtual meeting, and he had they creating they're using WhatsApp um, to that is cheap, it's available, it's accessible to all our learners, very low data usage and stuff like that, but learners can access a large language model through the WhatsApp opportunity. But we are keeping, and that's why I say the system needs to be prepared to change, because most of our learners, and it's, even if they don't have their own, they have access to a device at home, or my aunt has one, or my nephew has, or whoever, but they have access to.
So,
And access for me is key.
can we conclude this meeting that we should really be focusing on the kids having access to something that doesn't spoon feed? Because having
Yes.
access to a large language model doesn't necessarily prevent them from taking the hard route in learning.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
need to give them, and when I say access, I don't mean just AI or technological
Just
access. I
AI.
also
Mm.
mean parental guidance, teacher guidance, societal guidance, that
Yes.
you as the youth need to, you need to realize, wake up and understand that you've got 2 or 3 or 4 years in order to make your change. You
Mm.
cannot, you cannot carry on like you've done the
You
last
can
6 or 7 years,
you
because the
cannot
world is going to catch up.
outsource.
Yes. And I think that's the hard message. If I can conclude our
Mm.
conversation in one phrase or one idea, is the
Mm.
hard lesson that needs to get out to the youth of South Africa is that your time is
Mm.
running out. You cannot
Yes.
sit on your laurels and say, you know what, I will go through school by, whatever minimum standards I can, and then
Yes.
go and get a job or something, because the chances of that world existing by the time you leave school are shrinking
Mm.
every year.
Mm.
If you want to go for a vocation like a plumber or an electrician or a welder, yes, your job might be more safe, but everybody is now going for those job directions, because they know
Exactly.
that AI can't do that. So I would venture to say that the message to the children would be, get yourself intellectually and human ahead of what
Mm.
AI can achieve. No, not in terms of knowledge, but just reasoning ability.
Exactly. Every decision you make in your youth determines the quality of your life later on.
Yes, but
Every, every decision.
the impact of that statement wasn't so drastic 20 or 30 years ago. Even 10
Mm.
years ago, you could still float for a couple of
Yes,
years. But I think that window of
but it's
opportunity is
catastrophic now.
yes, that's a very good word to use. It's catastrophic if you don't understand the consequences of your decision. You have to
Yes.
be more than average to be more than average. And AI is going to catch you out if you are not ahead of the curve. And
Yes.
for that, you need to be human, get more sociable, learn networking skills in school, learn how to communicate better with people,
Yes.
and then also be sure to actually have that ability to think critically because
Correct.
ultimately the human in the loop still needs to be there. But if there are 10 people to choose from for one job, the one that can be the most human in the loop is probably going to get the job, not the one that's
Yes.
most skilled, a task that the AI can now do better than any human can. There's a slight
A,
distinction
fu-
there.
a future focus would not be the one who knows the most tools. It will be the one who can think, who can reason, who can figure it out on his own.
And that's a skill that school really can teach you.
They can teach you.
Vanessa, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you sitting down with me and having this conversation. I think it's been excellent. It's been very insightful, and I hope that the message gets out there. That
Mm.
especially towards the educators, I think get bombarded with AI messages every day. But
Yeah.
we need to get the message through to the kids as well to understand that the world is changing literally around them as they watch.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, thank you, Harry. This was now a very interesting hour and a half. Um, I enjoyed it. And the thing with being an AI enthusiast is you get to see both sides of the coin every day. And but the one thing in terms of what AI taught me in the space that I'm moving in is AI opened the world to us. And now I'm not talking about knowledge. I'm not talking about content. I'm talking about collaborations. AI, because it's so new, it also makes every AI expert accessible. Because if I now just think the support and help that I've gotten just on LinkedIn, people would message me, but I have a solution for you for this. Can we have a virtual so that we can have a discussion on that? And that is for me the magic of AI because it's new. And I'm learning every day. And that is how I feel others should experience it as a huge, huge, huge growth opportunity. Because the relationships I'm building can take me anywhere in the world.
Yes, for sure. And that's a networking skill.
20%
Yeah,
networking skill,
yeah, which is
networking
human.
skill, collaboration,
Full circle back to humanity.
full
But
circle.
anyway, Vanessa,
Yeah.
thank you very
But
much. You must
thanks.
have yourself a very good evening further.
The same to you. Thank you.